Introduce Major Bear to us.
Major Bear is called Major Bear because he's a major bear. He's huge and very sweet and gentle. He's a black bear. They're very different from grizzlies. The grizzlies have a quick intelligence and a quick temper, and they're just very quick. And black bears tend to be more slow and easygoing most of the time. One day, someone called us and said, we need to make a short video of a black bear for an art piece. This was for an art museum in Denmark, and this was perhaps November. And he said, he's sleeping. He doesn't want to come out. Please, 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 we have to. It's for this incredible grant, et cetera, et cetera. So we said, we'll try. So we got some blueberries, which is pretty seductive. And he slowly came out of his box and slowly came into the wildlife garden. But the worst of it was there was snow on the ground. And he would pick up his bare paws like it was a hot stove, and he'd be walking in the snow, whimpering.
Aww.
Huge bear whimpering like a little baby. I don't want to. It was really funny. And Jean would walk in the snow, and he would walk on the track so he wouldn't have to get any wetter than necessary. And they wanted him to lie down. And Major Bear basically said, no way. So I looked at this, and I went and got a bale of hay, and I spread the bale of hay in the garden, and his eyes got big, and he made a direct beeline for the hay and settled himself right down in that one safe, warm spot off that terrible snow. So they're really quite emotional, and they're very different from how people perceive them most of the time.
Can you imagine life without all of them?
No.
You could never go back, could you?
No. I mean, the richness, companionship, and the wonder of every single day, there's no way. We also have a cemetery here where any animal that passes away is buried. So we're kind of grounded here. That includes the chickens, by the way. So sometimes we will feed the chicken to a wild animal or a wolf, and the dead chicken turns into wolf, which to me is sort of like a Tibetan burial. It's also a respectful way of transitioning the body.
That's great. I did read that about your burial ground, your burial site there.
Yeah.
Teton Totem is a 1,000-pound grizzly bear that's been nearly paralyzed. How does he get around?
He's not paralyzed anymore.
What happened?
Well, he was, I don't know, maybe 9. We noticed him starting to have trouble getting around one year, and the next year it was worse. And then last year he was actually on his rather large bear butt, dragging himself with his front paws. We live in a rural area, and I don't know what most people could do for grizzly bears anyway, but we couldn't get him in a trailer to take him anywhere. So we asked our local vet to come and take a look, and he said, well, the most obvious thing to rule out is cancer, so let's see if we can x-ray him. So he tranquilized him and bought a portable x-ray. But tranquilizing a wild animal is a big deal because they don't understand it. And they just feel their consciousness going down, and it feels to them like they're dying, I think. And so they fight it. And he was pacing back and forth, panting in terror as he felt it taking control of him. And I thought, geez, I'm not going to do this again unless it's life or death. But anyway, eventually the poor bear, it overcame him, and we took the x-rays, but the x-ray machine wasn't powerful enough to get through all the muscle. But he was able to get the leg bones, at least, and say, okay, there's no cancer. And we said, well, what do we do now? Well, we don't really know. We can give you a shot of cortisone. So they gave him a long-acting shot of cortisone and said, in a week or two, it'll be as good as it's going to get. And it took him 2 days to wake up.
Wow.
And that really worried us, too. I mean, he was just really out of it. And when he finally woke up, he was just as paralyzed. And after a few weeks, the cortisone hadn't done anything. And so I said, there are things in this world that I don't really understand. But because I don't understand them doesn't mean I shouldn't try them if they're not going to hurt anybody. And a friend of mine used to be a medical intuitive working with doctors to sense where problems were. And then she became an animal communicator and a very gifted telepath. And she had met Teton, and I called her up and said, I don't know what to do. He's paralyzed. He's 1,000 pounds. We're not interested in putting him down. He's a young, vibrant, vital bear. And she said, let me see if I can make a connection with him. And she did this long distance. And she felt into him. And what she says, the way it works for her, she gets pictures. And she got a picture of his lower spine. And she said, I think he slipped a disc. And she's got a picture of once when he stood up a couple of years ago, that he felt it going, and that it's been going, getting worsened with nerve damage since then. And she said she just worked with him to try and start to slip it back into place, that she can't do it herself. The bear has to, or whatever animal she works with, has to want to live and want to do it. And the only thing I can tell you, the facts are, we have a little pool where the bears can play. And the next day after I contacted her, he dragged himself over and hung. He wasn't totally paralyzed, but he couldn't bear his weight on his, so to speak, on his back legs. And he hung the one that was worst into the pool and started to slowly rock it back and forth. He'd avoided the pool before because he couldn't get out. He'd drown in there because he couldn't climb out. And every day after that, he went to the pool. And each day she worked on him in September, end of September, early October. And before he went to hibernation, which would have been end of November, each day he was infinitesimally better.
Wow.
And he was walking, not perfect, but walking before he went into hibernation. And John built him a special warm bed, be worried about arthritis in his joints, etc. And when he came out in the spring, we were worried because what was going to happen over a whole winter of inactivity. And he was walking, and he was much sweeter tempered than he'd been in a couple of years.
Do you think in hibernation they also do a significant amount of repair, possibly?
Could be. But he was walking before he went in.
What is the great challenge at Earthfire Institute right now? There must be some challenges with this huge commitment and dedication you have.
The two major challenges are funding, because we have to raise $18,000 a month, and it's basically me who does that along with everything else. We have a tiny part-time staff, and to meet that every month is overwhelming. And along with that is the animals have enclosures built with love, but we never had enough money to give them what we really wanted. So every day I'm looking at them where I want a better life for them. And that's an emotional challenge for me. And it's mitigated by, as you've referred to the Condor Guy, it's mitigated for me by the fact that these animals are totally loved. They have the best food and medical care available, and they're listened to. They're seen for who they are. And even if you have, say, a kid in a rich family with a wonderful home, if they're not seen, there's no happiness. And if they are seen and they're in a poverty-stricken situation, there is. And in a way, that's true for animals. That's another reason we won't have lots of people come through, because we want each person to genuinely meet them as who they are, not as just, oh, there's a wolf. And I immediately say, no, that's not a wolf. That happens to be Nightwind, who happens to be a wolf. So the other major challenge is to help change people's mindsets to understand that these are really beings. And that's a big job. So I'd say those are the two main ones. There's always the sadness of losing animals when you have so many, and you never get used to that, but it also, in a sense, adds to the richness of your understanding of life, that everything is in constant transition and every moment is precious and every being is precious, because they may never be on the earth again, or in this form anyway.
It sounds like you've had a very blessed life, and also that your land and your facility or your sanctuary is blessed as well. Have you had a formal blessing?
We did ask we had a different Tibetan Rinpoche come, and we asked to talk about to experience the animals and talk about it. It was interesting. He said, this is a sanctuary for humans. And he did a blessing, but not a serious form of blessing, and I would like to.
It sounds like it's in part